Hello there, chess kids. Welcome back, and it is a Guten Tag because today on Fun Master Mike's YouTube Secrets, we're going to take a look at a couple of brilliant moves played in the same game by Austria's #1 player, Grandmaster Marcus Rager. Okay, now this position looks kind of normal, kind of sedate if you're studying for the SATs, kind of benign if you want to use some big words. However, Marcus has some deep ideas going. And in this position, he's trying to figure out what's the ideal placement for my pieces. And he's focusing on this knight. He's not focusing on all those great pastries in Vienna, although he might be, I actually don't know. But in this position, the knight, he really wants to get it to the square c4. If the knight gets to c4, that's going to team up well with lots of his pieces. For example, maybe the bishop will take the place of the knight and go to a3 and form a very strong attack on the dark squares. But there's a problem, of course. If he plays knight c4 right away, he'll just get captured by the black knight. So what to do? What to do? How do we get rid of the black knight? Well, I guess he could try c4, but that leaves a huge hole on this square, and he's not even able to play c5 because the queen will just have a little bit of breakfast. The queen will just take. So what does he do? He plays knight back to b1. Now, can I prove that he did not learn this idea by watching the ChessKid video on backward moves? No, I can't prove it. It's pretty likely he learned this idea outside of ChessKid, but you chess kids may have seen my video on backward moves, and you may have come up with this exact thought. The knight goes right back home with the very simple idea that the A pawn is not blocked anymore, and the A pawn's going to run to A5, forcing the knight to move, and the knight is going to be able to go right back to C4. Sometimes in chess, it's not so critical that you're worried about tempos or one or two moves. Black is not doing a whole lot in this position, so white actually had the time to do this. The computer even thinks knight b1 is the best move. So congratulations, Marcus, you're helping me teach a lesson. You played a pretty cool move. Now black played the move c5, and Marcus just continued upon his merry way and played a4. And we all see what's coming. The knight's coming back to the square a3. By the way, black may have been a little bit concerned about the bishop coming to a3. Maybe that's why he played c4. Okay, but anyway, continuing on, black moved the knight back to the square d7. Probably he realized this pawn was coming up here anyway. Okay, now a little bit of a problem for white. If his knight goes to a3 and his pawn goes to a5, then the black bishop can just take. So you've got to get the move order right. He went right back to a3. I guess he could have come to d2, but he didn't want to block his bishop. Okay, now black played the move a6, and you can see black's idea. Black wants to answer knight c4 with b5. Now black, of course, can't do it right away, because after the pawns trade, if you guys can see really far ahead, then the white rook would come all the way up and take the black one. That's a little hard to see because there's a lot of stuff on the a file, but I think you get my point. So he could have actually played knight to c4 right away, perhaps, but instead he played bishop to g5 first. Okay, now that opens up some ideas of playing the move e5. Of course, you've got to get the knight to c4 first to protect that pawn. The queen got out of the pin by going to d6, but then knight c4 came with tempo. Now the queen tried to hide on c6. White has a problem because finally, for the first time, black is able to play the move b5 because the queen will discover a defense of the rook. So if the pawns swap, the queen will defend the rook. And now Marcus plays a very standard idea. When you've got a knight on c4 or c5 if you're black, and you're trying to prevent the b pawn from kicking your knight, you can play a5. And now the problem is, if b5, you can take en passant. That's right. For those of you new to chess, please don't write to me that either YouTube or ChessKid has a problem. This is a legal chess move. We do get dozens of emails a day about this move en passant. Let's go back though. So after a5, we're preventing b5 because after takes en passant, the knight will get to sit on the c file forever, and this pawn will be weak on the a file forever. So black played knight to e5, pretty annoyed by this white knight. Okay, now we've already seen backward move once. I'm giving you a not so subtle hint that you might just see it a second time. What backward move did Grandmaster Rager play here to get a decisive advantage? Well, you probably found it because, spoiler alert, it's not Queen H1. That would be backward just to be silly. That's not the move. Marcus realized that this diagonal is incredibly weak, and notice Marcus has a light squared bishop and his opponent doesn't. You probably already picked up on that. So he brought a piece back to the first rank for the second time in the same game. Clearly, I need to redo my video on backward moves. Bishop to a5 would be winning the queen by virtue of the pin. Now, black doesn't really want to castle to the king side because eventually bishop takes knight would open up his king. So you castle queen side, but you know what the problem is? After bishop to a4, that queen is actually trapped anyway. Yep, and don't forget, b5 can still be answered by en passant. It's still a rule of chess. Things have not changed in the last 2 minutes. So the only way that black can avoid the major loss of material was to play rook takes. Don't forget, you can answer an attack with an attack if you have nothing else. Okay, that's one of those exceptions to the rules. But then after takes, white was up the exchange and went on to win the game in about 7 more moves or so. Fantastic example of backward moves to reposition pieces twice in the same game. If you didn't like those examples, and frankly you should, go check out the ChessKid video on backward moves, which we're going to throw up on the screen right there, and you're going to see plenty more examples of the same idea. One last favor to FunMaster, and it costs you nothing. Hit the subscribe button right there. You'll make me happy, as I hope I've made you with my latest YouTube secret.